This is the Farm Monitor. For over 50 years, your source for agribusiness news and features from around the Southeast and across the country, focusing on one of the nation's top industries, agriculture. The Farm Monitor is produced by one of the largest general farm organizations, the Georgia Farm Bureau. Now here are your hosts, Ray DeLessio and Kenny Bergamy.
Well, hey there, welcome to the show. Hope your summer is going well. As you can see, no Ray this week. It's just me, but that's the only change. Still got a great show for you. Now coming up, changing children's lives for the better. That's the Campus Club's motto, and now thanks to a grant, they hope to continue changing lives through agriculture. Also on the program, bet you've never seen a neighborhood like this one before. A place where residents grow and share food straight from their yard, and it's located just a stone's throw from downtown Atlanta. Plus, guard llamas for your cattle. No, I'm being serious. One breeder explains why she hasn't lost a single calf since they began guarding her herd 10 years ago. These stories and so much more start right now on the Farm Monitor. Well, let's face it, nothing says summertime quite like a fresh, juicy watermelon. And while growers expecting another good crop this year, getting there was anything but easy. Damon Jones tells you why.
Year in and year out, the state of Georgia is one of the top producers of the unofficial fruit of summertime, the watermelon. And that's likely to be the case once again in 2019, despite Mother Nature throwing growers a curveball late in the season.
The growing season went well up to harvest. And of course, once we've got to harvest, then we begin to have more issues mainly with the heat. When our crop began to come in there, be ready to start coming in and finish maturing there the last of May, it got extremely hot. And you probably realize that at that time we had record-breaking temperatures all through South Georgia.
That means a little more input costs had to be put into this year's crop in order to ensure the type of quality consumers have grown to expect.
We just water night and day. We water a lot with drip irrigation, and we never turn the drips off. We just run it around the clock. With our pivot systems, we turn them on and off, and we could kind of catch up with it, but it was extremely difficult to come through the dry time and come out with still have a quality crop. But we made it. It was stressful and it was really expensive, but we made it through there with a good quality crop.
And it wasn't just extra money that went into the crop, but also more time and effort. With the harsh conditions so close to harvest, growers had to make sure their melons were well maintained in order to keep them fresh in the field.
The good thing about a watermelon, if you treat it right and keep a good quality melon and keep a good vine cover to protect it from the sun, keep a good program as far as your fungicides to kind of protect your disease, it extends your season and that you can have a good quality melon over a good number of days.
While the hot, dry conditions did cause some problems, it also had some benefits for the fruit.
I know that heat and sunshine helps your sugar content, so for the most part, Georgia's had real good quality.
So while the quality is certainly there, the same can't be said for the demand, as mild summer conditions in the northern states have hurt the market.
Summer coming on, hot weather, vacation time, that's the ideal time for watermelons. But when ours came in and when Georgia came in initially, it was hot. It was cold and it was wet in the north. So they weren't eating any watermelons, and so the South couldn't eat all the watermelons. So all of a sudden, most of us farmers would find ourselves with watermelons we couldn't find a market for. So that was tough.
However, that doesn't mean there won't be plenty of consumers around the country as the temperatures start to heat up, and they can always expect the highest quality watermelons to be grown right here in Georgia.
Most people, they relate 4th of July, America with watermelon at that time of the year. So I enjoy growing a good quality watermelon, and I hate so much when somebody gets a melon that's not a quality melon. I hate for that to happen so much.
Reporting from Wilcox County, I'm Damon Jones for the Farm Monitor.
Like most careers, agriculture takes a special calling in life, a true passion. Recently, the Monitor visited an after-school community development center that's working to let children find their passions in life by exposing them to as many activities and programs as possible, including an educational garden.
Campus Clubs was established in 1996, and we're a Christian community development center that comes alongside economically disadvantaged students by sharing the love of Christ, providing academic assistance, and teaching life skills. We believe that every student who walks through our doors is born with specific God-given talents, and so one of our jobs is to come alongside every student and help them discover their particular gifting. And one of the ways we do this is by providing a broad range of activities and programs at our center. We offer everything from aviation club to robotics to a learn and earn bike shop to our educational garden to the arts and choir and music. And so we believe that by exposing students to this broad range of programs, a student will uncover a hidden talent or discover an interest, and then that interest or talent could turn into a possible career pathway. We've had an educational garden for several years, but this summer we really feel like our garden has just taken off to even greater heights. We received a grant from the Whole Kids Foundation, and that allowed us to install cement garden beds and also to hire a summer garden intern whose entire specialty this summer is just focusing on the garden, providing educational lessons, and then taking them out to the garden to plant and weed and water. And it's been amazing to see how our students have responded to that.
My primary responsibilities are teaching the first and second graders a garden class, and then a big component of that is going to the garden and actually getting our hands dirty and planting. We've grown okra seeds, we've done worksheets. We hope they'll draw the connection between the food that we're planting and the food that they see in their lunches every day. It's been really cool to see them get excited about the garden program, especially when we're planting, like getting them excited about planting okra seeds and then seeing the okra seeds shoot up over the weekend. And them just getting excited about going down to the garden and all the different plants. And you know, one time we were taking peppers down to the garden and they're like, "Can we eat these?" I'm like, "They're not ready yet." But it's just cool to see that because of the garden, they're actually really excited about eating the vegetables, not just about interacting with them.
We would be thrilled if through exposing a student to gardening, he or she discovered a talent or interest and went into agriculture. We know that agriculture is a big industry here in Georgia. And so we'd be thrilled if one of the students we worked with had a passion for agriculture, and you know, maybe we have a future farmer or a future food scientist or a horticulturist, you know, in our midst through, and it all started through gardening.
Now, when we come back, a unique concept near downtown Atlanta described as an edible neighborhood, how it got started, and the ways it continues to grow by the day.
For years, we've been told what you see is what you get. At first glance, this appears to be your typical small-town rural neighborhood.
But another famous saying, what you see isn't always what you get. And this here, well, this isn't your typical neighborhood. This is Chosewood Park, located in the Atlanta Beltline. It's believed to be a one-of-a-kind, an edible neighborhood, and the brainchild of real estate investor Clay Preston.
The idea of the edible neighborhood is to plant perennial plants at the edge of the sidewalk where the neighbors can enjoy those plants themselves. So it's just sort of a gesture for to bring the neighborhood together, to collect the fruit, make preserves or jelly or whatever they want out of it, but and you know, table eating too. But it's more than any one family can do, so put it out there where the neighborhood can enjoy it.
The fruit portion of the menu, just a small sample of what the neighborhood has to offer. There's also herbs, spices, veggies, even edible flowers. But yes, the fruit itself is rather tasty, and for the residents who live here, well, it's easy to see how they have become spoiled by those same fruits. In a good way, of course.
It is a luxury to have the ripe, fresh fruits and vegetables right at your doorstep. So you don't have to go to the supermarket. It's there for you to gather at your will, and you can't get anything better than fresh, more fresh than going outside and picking it. And it's a great way to educate children, even people who were unaware of how the fruits or vegetables came to be, what types of plants, trees, etc. So it's a great learning experience for them as well.
It's also been a learning experience for Mike McCord, who owns and operates Community Foodscapes, an Atlanta-based company that was initially formed as a garden consultation and landscaping firm.
Working on a neighborhood scale is kind of what we're trying to do as a company. So primarily we focus on single-family residences and schools and try to help people grow food where they live, work, and play. And this is kind of been very unique because we're doing it on a neighborhood scale, whereas typically we're working one house at a time. So we're getting to kind of have more impact by working with multiple neighbors at once, you know, planting plum trees in one front yard and blueberries next door, and kind of having the neighbors harvest together when there's an abundance of food.
Chosewood Park is really a very wonderful little community. It's very tiny, a very tiny neighborhood, maybe 300 homes. There's a lot of multifamily up on the Beltline, but the single-family part of the neighborhood is quite intimate in a way with just 300 homes, and it's a wonderful, wonderful neighborhood. The sense of community here is very strong, very deep, and so we, as the real estate investors, we just thought, what could we do to enhance this neighborhood, to make it, to help the community be a little stronger, and to give them something, another thing that pulls them together is a delight for them. And turns out plums and apples and pears, cherries and grapes and culinary herbs are a really nice way to give people a way to come together.
And that sense of community even extends to those who live outside of Chosewood Park. People like Mike McCord.
One of my fondest memories of the project was just 2 weeks ago when I was out just maintaining the trees, watering them, mulching them, weeding them, and we had some plum trees that were ripe, and some of the neighbors from next door, 5 or 6 little kids, came over and started climbing the tree and harvesting plums from it and talking about how this is their tree, and they've grown up with the tree next door, growing food for them. So kind of seeing that connection between people in the city who typically aren't getting to experience food in that way, and really building a connection between the planet, the plants, and the people living in the community. So that was a really powerful experience to actually see the tangible aftermath of all the work that we put into the neighborhood.
For the Farm Monitor, I'm Ray DeLessio.
Hey Ray, great job. Up next, who needs a guard dog when guard llamas are just as efficient? See for yourself when the Monitor continues.
I'm Shirley Williams with Fair Oaks Farm. This is my husband's family's original farm. They've been here since 1935, and we're raising registered seed stock Angus cattle. We have a real problem with coyotes here. Also with dogs that are dropped off. We're right at the edge of the city limits, so we get a lot of dog drop-offs. So they're pretty aggressive towards the cattle when they're calving and the young calves, at times, so we needed to do something. I lost a couple of really valuable calves. So I read the study from Iowa University Extension Department, and they talked about guard llamas with sheep. And at the end of it, they talk about other possibilities to use them. And so I decided I was going to try it. It was real important that you look for the right type of llama, that it's a gilded male is the best, that's worked the best for us, and that they are used to people pretty much, so they're not spitting at you and they're kind of used to that whole thing, but they literally consider themselves one of the cow herd. If anything new comes into the pasture, I don't care if it's a person, any kind of other animal, they're immediately on point. I talk about. They will stand and just stare. They're very intimidating. They walk towards that animal. Canines have an instinctive fear of llamas, which are the camelid family, like camels. And camelids have an instinctive dislike for dogs. But if they feel like they're a threat to the herd, that's when they'll start going towards them and kind of after them. And I've literally, because I have them all in separate pens, I've watched one llama pick up a coyote from one pen, chase it, the coyote goes under the fence, the next llama picks it up and takes it to the next, and moves it on out of the area. So they have been wonderful. I have not had a calf loss in 10 years with the llamas from any kind of predator. I guess it was my first time to really see the danger that the llamas will put themselves in order to protect their herd. I'd gotten up really early, our home's over there with big windows, and I saw the cows following Crow up this fence line headed towards the barn. And I thought, that's kind of weird. And they were at a pretty good pace, but they were all in line behind him. Then I look out and I see a black and white dog, two of them, kind of running. And I told my husband, I said, we've got dogs after the cattle, come on. Anyway, so I said, I'm gonna let Crow lead the cattle into the barn for safety reasons. So he did, he led them straight in there. The cattle all followed perfectly. Then my farm hand called me and he said, have you seen Crow? And I said, yeah, he's in the barn with the cattle. He goes, no, you need to come see Crow. And I went down there and his whole back hide was completely gnawed out, bleeding profusely. And so I just panicked, took him immediately to the vet. He's a good friend of mine. I loaded him up, took him up there. It was so bad he couldn't even stitch it. So he had to, I literally walked him back and forth, kept him in the calving shed and cleaned and sprayed that silver healing stuff on the skin for 3 months before I could turn him back out. But the vet said it looked like he had tried to fend off the dogs, and the dogs literally grabbed him by the back end, and he, instead of stopping, he dragged that dog behind him. And that's what ripped out so much of the hide and muscle. Yeah, and I mean, they put themselves in harm's way to protect their herd. I really don't know another cattle rancher that has them for their cattle. They are so easy to care for. They eat exactly like cattle do. Everything, if the cattle are going up to feed, they'll come up. The cattle usually run them off from the feed, but they're very easy to care for. So I highly recommend them.
Wow, great story. Well, in case you missed it, July is Smart Irrigation Month here in Georgia, which is a great way to promote the social, economic, and environmental benefits of efficient irrigation technologies and farmers who've committed to use them. One of those farmers is Upper Flint Regional Water Council Chair Donald Chase, who stopped by the studios recently. Donald, tell us why Smart Irrigation Month is important to Georgians, not just farmers, but consumers of agricultural products.
Well, I think the point of Smart Irrigation Month is to increase in farmers' minds the awareness of how we use water, of how vitally important water is to us, how we can use it more efficiently and still produce, the same high quality, high yielding crops that we've always done. And so you're correct in that it's not just for us farmers, but it's for the consumers, because they are expecting those products that they get in the summertime from Georgia. Watermelons, sweet corn, all those wonderful fresh produce things. And so I think it's good for us to always ask ourselves, how can we do this more efficiently?
I know summertime particularly, farmers need to water. We typically have some really dry months and periods of time in Georgia. Why July? Is there a reason for that?
Well, I think it's probably peak irrigation season for most crops. The cotton and peanut crops are kind of reaching that prime time for bloom and fruiting, and the corn is still getting a little bit of that. So I think our big crops in Georgia are at their peak usage in terms of water at that point.
It seems like there's a lot of very important people that recognize that water is such a wonderful commodity that we have. The governor's behind this, Farm Bureau has gotten behind this, you have the USDA and conservationists are working on this. Because it's so well recognized by so many different entities, where do you see this going? Do you see this catching on and something that people will look to every year to know that we're going to remind producers and others that we really need to be protecting the water supply?
I hope we do it every year. I hope it's always good to remind ourselves. I will say this though, that I think farmers in a large part are trying and making those changes in our irrigating, in our systems, both in the technology that we employ. And I think there's been an increasingly wider adoption of smart sensors where we're actually measuring the moisture in the soil and comparing that to the curves, the water usage curves of our crops, so that we're paying a lot more attention to it. And that's what Smart Irrigation Month would do for us, is to allow us to, hey, yes, let's pay attention again.
Technology has brought us so far along, hasn't it? It's changed the dynamics.
Yes, indeed. And it's not, one of the interesting things that we saw in peanut research is that even though July tends to be one of our wetter months, the planting peanuts about the 1st of May tends to bring them into that fruiting stage in July. And so we're not only are we using technology to monitor our particular individual fields, but on an aggregate, I think we're trying to figure out when's the best time to plant to maximize those natural showers that come in.
One other question, have more and more producers began to take on these adaptive measures so that they can be responsible and very closely monitor the water usage that they have?
I think so. From year to year, we see different weather challenges. If you'll recall, the last 3 weeks of May were not particularly conducive to planting things and getting things done. So I think that caused probably some delays in planting, but I think most people try to get things done on a timely manner, get their crops planted so that they can maximize those natural showers. And that's a smart irrigation strategy as well, is to try to plan around. We can't predict when they're coming, but at least try to manage so we can optimize that usage of our thunderstorm showers, and then manage our irrigation to work around that.
That is excellent info, and a big thanks to Donald Chase for stopping by. And of course, thank you for watching the show. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week right here on the Farm Monitor.